Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ideas Hive for Ideas for Us St. Pete. Tonight, we're really excited to talk to all of you about a topic that we haven't really covered before, which is transportation and how that affects our sustainability, in particular, how cars are affecting our cities. So we're really excited. We have two awesome speakers for tonight. We would like to start off with a couple of our community spotlights. And then we'll get into a little bit about ideas for us. And then we will have an icebreaker, our speakers, and we'll close out with some calls to action. So get ready for an awesome conversation. And thank you so much for joining us for the Ideas Hive for Ideas Hive St. Pete this evening. So we have a local leader in the Douglas Hackworth property movement. So we are so excited today to welcome Nicole. Nicole is on the call to talk to us about this important property and what you can do to help save it. So Nicole, please take it away.
Hi, thank you for having me this evening. And thank you for letting me speak about such an important cause that's going on right now. So there is a piece of very special property referred to as the Douglas Estate or the Douglas Hackworth property. And that is in Dunedin, Florida. And it is essentially 44 acres, and that actually lies adjacent to Jerry Lake, which would be another 50 acres added onto that. And our goal is to actually preserve this property, which is currently under contract with the Pulte Homes developer. And so we're hoping that that contract falls through and the county will be given a second chance to purchase the property. They did not make an initial offer when they were approached by the estate. So philanthropist Gladys Douglas, the late philanthropist Gladys Douglas, who passed away in July of last year, she wanted her property to become a preserve. She said she never wanted it to be purchased by a developer. Anytime someone approached her, she said, no, thank you. You know, I want it to be preserved for the community. And she did a lot for the city of Dunedin and the county, Pinellas County. And so we're hoping to honor those wishes and preserve the property. In general, you know, what can you do? Why is this so important? Well, one of the reasons why this specific property is so important is because it's one of the largest parcels left in Pinellas County of green space. You know, we can preserve a lot of little spaces, but really when it comes down to it, a larger piece of habitat is more ecologically valuable. And this specific piece actually contains endangered rosemary scrub, which is extremely rare. It's been extirpated, and from the state and from the county, there's very few pieces of it remain. And so we are lucky to have one last piece here in Pinellas County that we might be given the chance to save it. You know, and there's lots of species out there such as golden eagles and gopher tortoises and various other flora and fauna. And so we're really hoping that the commissioners, if given the opportunity, will actually vote to preserve this property. And, you know, what can you do as a call to action, an individual, what can you do? Well, we do have, you know, feel free to join our Facebook page, the Preserve the Douglas Hackworth Property, hashtag Save the GDP, not gross domestic product, but the Gladys Douglas Preserve. And on that Facebook page, we do have a petition that you can sign, which goes to the commissioners asking them for their support in preserving this property. You know, that's our main goal. That's why we're here. And we're hoping that in the end, this is kind of, you know, just one symptom of the disease. We have a lot of conservation concerns here in Pinellas County. We're one of the most densely populated counties in the state, if not the most densely populated county. And we really have a need for more green spaces. So we're not going to stop at the Douglas Hackworth property. That is our highlight right now, but we will be moving forward on other conservation concerns in the county after we're able to save this one property.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole, and thank you so much for sharing about this property. So if you're in the area, or even if you just really are looking for something to rally behind, please follow them. Follow them on Facebook and in the petition. We share the petition in our chat, so make sure right now to open that up and to sign that petition and to follow the Douglas Estate in this group for anything that happens in the future. So thank you, Nicole, and hopefully you will have some new people recruited from today's discussion. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And our next thing, I would like to bring our branch manager, which is Hannah Miller, to talk about this other spotlight, which is Clearwater Landings.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to shout out to all my Clearwater folks. This area of land needs your help. Clearwater Landings is at risk of being redeveloped into an industrial area instead of the public recreational green space it serves as now. So November 3rd, just vote no on the lease agreement referendum. And I also included the link to the Facebook page. They have a lot of great information there. They have the residents of the community have mentioned that there's hundreds of empty parking lots and industrial spaces already, and that what's really needed is this urban green space that they call a refuge for Florida wildlife. So definitely really important. And if you want to know more, definitely go to the Facebook page.
Awesome. So we'll be sharing that in the chat as well. So there's a lot of local things that you can get involved with, and you can help to promote this. So if you want to make a Facebook post, an Instagram post, make a video and talk about why these areas are important to you. We really need people behind these environmental movements, especially when it comes to the land that is going to development so fast. So please take action. The next thing is just a quick spotlight on our local business. Every IDEAS Hive, we usually shout out something that's going on locally and or a local business. So in this case, it's Greenhouse Solar and Air. They're a solar energy company. It's still a great time to switch to solar. If you're interested, please check out greenhousesolarandair.com. They also were a past Hive speaker, and follow them on Facebook for more information. So a little bit about the IDEAS Hive before we get into it. IDEAS for us is a 501c3 nonprofit headquartered in Orlando, Florida, but we have branches all over the world in Africa, Asia, Europe, and here three branches here in Florida. So the whole idea is that every single month through the IDEAS Hive and through our eco action programs and projects, we are focusing on energy, food, waste, water, and ecology. So this might be talking about energy like tonight. We might be doing some things like solar workforce training programs. With food, we could be talking about local urban agriculture or even reducing our food waste and engaging in projects such as that. For waste, we can do audits. We can talk about our huge global waste problems that we have. We had a previous hive that was just about that and about our issues with food waste as well. Water here in Florida is becoming more and more of a conversation of how much water we have left in our aquifers and even the quality of water and how we can improve that within our own habits, but also rallying behind some of the ways that we control our water in the state of Florida. And for ecology, something that we really like to do with IDEAS for us is plant trees. So we might have a conversation about local ecology, Florida habitats, and how we can get involved directly by engaging in native landscaping. So these are just some of the things that we talk about, but if you're interested in any of this, next month we're gonna have a totally new topic and new speakers and a new eco action project. So please join us. And we look forward to having more engaging conversations. And if you have an idea, please reach out to us and we'd love to have you either as a speaker or to just share something that you care about. I'll also mention during this presentation, if you have any questions related to the subject matter of tonight's Hive, please make sure to add it in the comments below in our Facebook Live, and we will be sure to read them. So make sure you're at the IDEAS for Us St. Pete Facebook page and putting your comments right there for us to read. All of our projects and programs align with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. There's 17 of these goals. Basically, this just helps us to kind of organize what we're doing and how our local actions can help with global issues and challenges in sustainability. Also, the IDEAS Hive is part of our main programming with IDEAS for Us. Another thing that we do is the Solutions Fund, which micro grants to sustainable ideas all over the world. And through the IDEAS Hive, which brings together community members to talk about really important sustainability topics, whether you know a little bit on the topic, nothing on the topic, or you have a little bit more information, we try to help the entire community kind of come and have a conversation together, usually in person, but for right now it's online. And something really awesome that came out of this was fleet farming. So fleet farming is the urban agriculture program that turns the average American lawn into a productive farm. So if you're interested in that, check out fleetfarming.org and see our crazy bike-powered urban agriculture program and what we're up to with that here in Orlando. So for St. Pete, we meet once a month, usually in person, like mentioned, but we meet every first Monday of the month at 7 p.m. And our action days are usually every last Saturday of the month, but we have some virtual action items so then you can get involved from your own home. Please donate if you feel called to support the programming that we put on every month. Also, if you're interested to become a member, we have some awesome perks. We also have business memberships. So we have an Ideas for Us podcast and some other perks associated with that. So if you're interested in becoming a CSR member, also please reach out to us and we can make sure to shout out your business. You can join our organizing team. We're made up of everyday people and volunteers that are interested in environmental programming. So if you have a really good idea or you want to be involved in organizing, please email me at contact@ideasforus.org and we would love to have your input. So now I'm going to popcorn over to Hannah to take it away with today's topic of the Hive and some of our icebreaker and information about it.
So I want to show how easy it is to be car-free in Pinellas County with their public transportation system. This is to the right is the pictures of the zero emission 100% electric bus and then the downtown looper. They provide 15-minute services, meaning like every 15 minutes a new one shows up. They're open, they run 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday. As far as I know, during like the pandemic hours, it's 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. But I did see different courses or different transit lines that said that they're open till midnight sometimes as well. So I would definitely double check the website if you're considering taking these for a ride. I also thought it was really interesting that to pay for the charging stations for these, they used settlements from various oil spills, such as, you know, the BP one and then the Deepwater spill. And this was in 2018 and 2020. The funding from the Deepwater spill actually funded the first wireless charging station in the East Coast for the e-looper, the blue Join the Charge bus in the picture featured there. And next slide. I also want to introduce our SDG goal for this month, affordable and clean energy, which is ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. One of the goals of SDG 7 includes substantially increasing clean and affordable energy infrastructure and technology globally by 2030. I thought it was really notable that Florida is the second largest producer of electricity in the United States, but in 2018, natural gas fueled about 70% of electricity net generation, while renewables only accounted for about 3%, and that was mostly biomass and solar energy. And then, which brings us to our icebreaker. So I thought I could introduce some of these cool electric vehicles that they're coming out with nowadays. And I thought it would be fun to try to guess, for our audience to guess how many miles each electric vehicle can get before needing to be charged. So we have the Ford Focus Electric, the Mercedes-Benz B-Class, the Chevy Bolt EV, the Mitsubishi MIEV, and the Nissan Leaf. And so I'll give you guys a couple minutes to try to guess how many miles they each get.
So also I'll mention on this slide, while you're thinking about how many miles, we don't see Prius. So maybe our speakers can mention that and mention who the leaders are in some of these vehicles. So if you're going vehicle shopping right now, it might be a good idea to take some notes in this class today. So we'll give you about 30 more seconds just to kind of put some numbers down. You can also just mention which one you think is the most efficient and the least efficient.
Okay, I think that's a good amount of time for those who guessed. So we'll start off with the most efficient, which was actually the Chevy Bolt EV. So if you have one or guessed that, congratulations and great job. The least efficient being the Mitsubishi IMI EV at 62 miles. And then the other runner-ups were Nissan Leaf with 226 miles, the second most efficient, the Ford Focus Electric at 115 miles, the third. And then lastly, the second to last most efficient, the Mercedes-Benz B-Class at 87 miles. So the winner definitely being the Chevy Bolt EV. And then, which brings us to our speakers who are going to talk about the future of transportation and energy. Today we have Susan Glickman, who has worked with Southern Alliance for Clean Energy since 2001 as a consultant and lobbyist, and was also named Florida Director in August 2013. And then we have Dory Larsen, who joined the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy in 2017 in the newly created role as Electric Vehicle Program Associate, and became the Electric Vehicle Program Coordinator in 2019. And we are so excited and honored to have them. I will give the stage to them.
Great. Thank you so much. This is really exciting. So as Hannah said, I'm Susan Glickman. I'm the Florida Director of Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and I've been working on climate and energy issues for 2 decades. So it's very heartwarming for me to see smart young people paying attention to this issue in general of climate change. It is the most epic, challenging problem that we face as a society. There is so much interconnectedness between all the issues that was mentioned, from climate to open spaces to food, waste, solar, water quality, water quantity, all of these various issues that you're working on. And then over all of it is really an equity lens that we must be paying attention to, particularly in what we're seeing now with racial and economic disparities being, so laid bare in our society. You mentioned earlier about the charging, and my colleague Dory Larsen is going to get to a lot of this, but when you start to lay down electric vehicle charging infrastructure, if you don't do it across the community wide, it's another level of digital divide. So there are a lot of people paying attention to this whole sort of set of equity issues. So as I said, we in Southern Alliance for Clean Energy work on a range of sort of aspects of this to ensure clean and safe and healthy communities throughout the Southeast. I work primarily in Florida. Dory, we work regionally, and I know Dory does some work on electric vehicles in other states like Tennessee. So she may want to speak to what's going on in other states. But there are a lot of issues. And today I looked at the sort of measurement for where we are with greenhouse gas emissions, and we're past 412 parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere. And for about 1 million years, we were at 280 and moved our way up. And we're on a really, really dangerous trajectory for a very inhospitable planet. And we're seeing it every day in extreme weather. And Florida's a big state. It's a big politically potent state. We have 21 million residents. It's the 3rd most populous state. And we have the 2nd largest amount of passenger vehicles. So when things happen in Florida, it really does help to influence markets. And Hannah, I was very impressed that you knew that Florida is more than 70% reliant on gas. One of the things that happened in 2017 is transportation overtook the power sector in terms of being where most of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from. And in part, that was because we moved to some, not particularly just in Florida, from coal to natural gas, except that gas still puts out greenhouse gas emissions. On the very best day, it's half the emissions of a coal plant. But if you frack the gas during the process, it releases methane, and methane, which is on a much shorter time span, is super potent. It can be like 86 to 100 times more potent. So if all things if it's not going well, a gas plant can be as bad as a coal plant in terms of greenhouse gas emission. It's something everyone will want to be watching out for. So the fastest thing you can do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is to take an internal combustion engine off the road. It also has the added benefit, for instance, when we talk about electrifying public transit, which is super important, it also is an equity issue because it gets rid of some of that near road air pollution that is much more, it causes much more harm to frontline communities because they're getting more of the pollution, whether they live near the coal plant or they live near the interstate. So there's definitely an equity lens from that. So transportation, it's not just vehicles, it's cars, it's trucks, it's planes, it's trains, it's boats. But the good news is that over the life cycle of an electric vehicle, it just costs less to operate. So I'm gonna sort of pitch it over to Dory, who's gonna run you through a lot of information, background information, but it's gonna help us take care of our natural environment. Florida sends $57 billion a year out of state to bring in fossil fuels from elsewhere. And so it's cheaper over the life cycle. So it's sort of like what's not to like. And I will make a pitch for the car that I am very fortunate to get to drive, which is the Tesla 3. And that costs about the same as a Chevy Bolt. So you can get 258 miles in a Tesla 3. It costs $38,000 with a 250 mile range. So that should be, and I know not everybody can afford that, but when I bought my Toyota Camry hybrid for $32,000 in 2008, you're starting to see more used vehicles, and Dory will tell you about her own experience with her used Nissan Leaf. So anyway, the Tesla is a company that's really, I think, moving the needle quite a bit, and we should all be happy for that, even if you never get a Tesla, because we have to move markets on this. So anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Dory Larsen, who is an absolute force of nature and just doing such great work, helping to move fleets, and then I'll come back on at the end and talk a little bit about what you all can do to help.
Thank you, Susan, for that great introduction. And if you would go to the next slide. I just want to talk a little bit about Electrify the South. So that is where SACE's broad electric transportation work is housed, is with our Electrify the South campaign. So Electrify the South engages local and state governments, as well as utilities and also consumers in Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to advance electric transportation. Next slide. And like Susan mentioned, the transportation sector is now the largest source of carbon dioxide pollution in the United States. So it's really important for us to each personally be doing our part to address that. Next slide. And like Caroline mentioned, when we're talking about an EV, it's important that we're all using the same lexicon. So when we're talking about electric cars, those are cars that use electricity as a fuel source. So while your Prius is a much better alternative to a traditional internal combustion engine, it doesn't take electricity as a fuel source. The plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, on the other hand, so that's the third one down in blue, they take both electricity and gasoline as a fuel source. And then a battery electric vehicle, or a BEV, is purely electric. So the Nissan Leaf that I drive does not take any gasoline, it's all electric. So when we hear electric vehicles, you're typically talking about the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and the electric vehicles. So the ones that are fueled by electricity as an energy source. Next slide. So why would you want to go electric? So we're going to run through all of these reasons, but I think it's important that people understand, because a lot of folks have this understanding that the cost of an electric vehicle is far higher than what it actually is. So if you look at the Kelley Blue Book value of a new electric vehicle, the average price is $40,850, and that's a lot. But the average new vehicle is $37,876. So it's actually only a couple $1,000s more than a internal combustion engine. And the higher upfront cost with an electric vehicle is recouped quickly because fueling an EV is substantially less than a traditional vehicle, and EVs have lower maintenance costs. So next slide. So if you look at the fuel cost to drive electric, if you are driving a regular gas-powered car, it costs about 10 cents per mile, and that's assuming you get 23 miles per gallon and gas is $2.25 a gallon. If you compare that with an electric vehicle, it costs about 3.5 cents per mile, and those energy costs stay pretty standard, whereas the price of gas fluctuates quite a bit. Electricity is pretty even. And then if you have electric from rooftop solar like we have on our house, it actually only costs about a penny per mile to drive electric. So I'm spending about $10 to go 1,000 miles, whereas it would cost about $200 to make that same trip in a traditional vehicle. Next slide. So in addition to having lower fuel costs, there are much lower maintenance costs with an electric vehicle. And that's because they have much fewer moving parts. So there's just a lot less maintenance that's required. There's no oil changes that you have to do with a battery electric vehicle. So besides tire rotations, the first scheduled routine maintenance on a Chevy Bolt is at 150,000 miles. So when you factor in lower fuel costs as well as lower maintenance costs, it really becomes a very economic choice to drive electric. Overall, we say that you'll save about $10,000 over 10 years of ownership. And Consumer Reports just put out a report this week that highlights the costs and really breaks down all of those maintenance and fuel costs. So I'm happy to share that link if you guys are interested. Next slide. There's links that are embedded in the PowerPoint. So there we go. So EVs are far more efficient than a traditional car. So it takes about, when you plug in your car, that electricity that's going into the car, about 80% of it actually moves the wheels to power to propel the car down the road. Whereas with traditional gasoline, only about 20% of the the energy that's stored in gasoline powers the wheels. And that's because so much of the energy is given off as heat during the combustion process. So an electric motor is just a far more efficient machine than a traditional engine. Next slide. So when I say they're more efficient, I mean a lot more efficient. The average fuel efficiency in the United States is only 25.1 miles per gallon. The average fuel efficiency for most electric cars is over 100 miles per gallon E, which is an equivalent. Obviously, they're not driving on gallons of gasoline. So the MPGE is just a fuel equivalent of how much energy is in a gallon of gasoline. So what that means to the average consumer is that you're using a lot less energy to get from point A to point B. And the cheapest fuel out there is the fuel that you don't use. Next slide. So because they are more efficient, they are also giving off much fewer greenhouse gases. Fewer greenhouse gases are being generated when you're driving electric. And because they have no tailpipe, they are not generating those human health pollutants at the street level. So today, an average EV on the road has the same greenhouse gas emissions as a car getting 88 miles per gallon. And there is no car on the road that's getting anywhere close to 88 miles per gallon. And the cool thing with EVs is that they will continue to get cleaner over the life of owning the car as the grid itself is getting cleaner. A lot of the investor-owned utilities, the municipal utilities have made commitments to greening their grid and adding more renewable energy. So as you drive an electric vehicle, the grid's getting cleaner and your car is able to be driving cleaner. So I bought my used Nissan Leaf for $8,400. And we power it with solar panels on our roof. So I'm basically driving on sunshine, and so is Susan, has the same setup on her house as well. So we're basically driving emission free. And that's the really cool thing about electric vehicles. So next slide. This is
Dory, just one thing correct me if I'm wrong, about 80% of people charge at their own home. Just so you speak to that a little bit so people understand that.
Yeah, most of the time, and I'm going to get into charging in a little bit, but most of the time, and Susan's correct, about 80% of charging happens at home or at the workplace. So most folks are charging at home. So EVs are really fun to drive. The quickest car in the world, so the 0 to 60 on a Tesla Model S is 2.2 seconds. So it's not like driving electric is, dorky or like you're not like giving up anything. It's actually so much fun. Even my Nissan Leaf, which style-wise takes a few pointers from the Teslas, but I can still like take any other gas car on the line at a green light and just take off. And it's really kind of fun to do. I know it's immature, but it is fun. And the propulsion from an electric motor also means that EVs are a lot more smooth. So they have a single speed transmission, so you don't feel that rev as they have to get up to gear to switch gears like a regular car does. And it also makes them a lot quieter to drive. Additionally, they have to pass the same safety requirements as and have the same safety standards, and oftentimes pass them with flying colors compared to their internal combustion counterparts. Also, the technology on them is far superior. When you're driving these cars, it's really like driving a computer. And you can power them, like Susan said, at home. So it's convenient. You drive during the day, you pull into your garage, you plug in, you forget about it for the rest of the evening. And it also means that during COVID, with all of the, everybody's so worried about germs, that you're not having to touch dirty gas handles at a gas station. So, in addition, because they don't have the oil, you're not wasting time having to take the car to oil changes every couple months, and you don't have to worry about those oil marks in the driveway or in the garage. So it really is just a much superior driving experience. I say it's like going from a flip phone to a smartphone. Next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you charge your electric vehicle. So the first way is called trickle charging or level 1 charging, and it adds about 5 miles per hour. So it's not particularly speedy, but most folks in the US do not drive more than 40 miles in a day. So when you come home, you plug in your car overnight, it completely replenishes what you used in your day. And it's just a very convenient way to charge. So the cord comes with the car. You just plug it into a regular 110 outlet, and then you plug the other end into the car. Very simple, very easy. I've actually also used it in town. So a lot of the light posts in Gulfport, in the city of Gulfport and in Tarpon, the light posts have a light switch or an electrical outlet at the bottom of them. So you can just plug your car in there. So that really is convenient. The next way to charge your EV on the next slide is called level 2 charging. And those are the types of charging units that you typically see around town. So a lot of grocery stores like Whole Foods and libraries, public libraries, or other city places have these kind of charging stations. These are running on a 220 volt power source. So it's like a dryer plug that you would plug your dryer into. and they add about 25 miles per hour. So it's a much faster charge. Some folks also choose to add one of these charging stations in their garage. So I did not for the first 2 years that I drove electric. I just used the regular 110 outlet in my garage and plugged the car that way and trickle charged. But we recently did add a charging station because when we got our second electric vehicle, we thought it would be helpful, and it does make the charging a lot faster. And then the third way that you can charge your electric vehicle is called DC fast charging. And that allows you to add about 80% of the battery capacity in about a half an hour. So it's, instead of AC power, it's DC or direct current power. It's a much faster way to charge your car. And you typically see these kinds of charging stations on highways, or where you're wanting to be able to charge up quickly and then get on your way. On the left is called the J1772 combo. That is the kind of DC fast charger that you'll find on American-made and European-made models. And on the right, it's called Chatamo, and that's the type of charging system that Asian manufacturers use. But Nissan has just said this past month that they're going to transition to the J1772 combo. So basically all of the American models or models sold in the United States will be using that for the fast charging. Unless, and then let's go to the next slide. Unless you're a Tesla. So Tesla has got their own proprietary charging, and the shape of the plug is the same for all three levels of charging. So whether you are, whether you have the cord at home or you have a level 2 charger or supercharging, that shape just plugs right into the back of the car like you see in the picture. Cool thing like that Tesla does have is an adapter. So if you want to charge on a regular level 2 charger in the community, you just pop the adapter onto your plug and you can charge your Tesla that way as well. And then just one of the few other points that I want to make is how many models there are coming to market. So for a while, I think there were a lot of folks that thought EVs were a fad or they were going to be going away. But you can see with these major commitments by almost every major auto manufacturer that they have realized the need to transition to electric, and that an all electric future is what we are aspiring towards in the United States. And this really came about because of the petrol bans that are being announced by China, the European Union, and now California has actually said that they're going to be banning the purchase of new traditional vehicles after 2035. So the writing's on the wall. There are about 500 different models that are expected by 2022. So it's coming very quickly. Including lots of models of trucks. So not just cars, but SUVs and trucks, and also heavy duty trucks. If you want to switch to the next slide, it just shows some of the other manufacturers' financial commitments, the models, the number of models that they're committing to by the date that they're committing, and how many of their fleet are going to be made up of electric. So really exciting. And then the next slide just shows that there are over 50 models available in the United States right now. So people don't realize that there are just that many to choose from already. And there are a lot of lower priced models to choose from. Like I said, I purchased mine used, and there are a lot of deals to be had in the used EV market. Some can be purchased for under $10,000. If you go to this website, plugstar.com, and type in your zip code, it will show you the models that are available in your area for purchase. And then the next slide, I just wanted to also point out that a lot of the new models still qualify for federal tax credits. So tax credits are for up to $7,500 per vehicle. It depends on the manufacturer. So manufacturers like Tesla have already sold 200,000 of their EVs. So that credit has sunset for Tesla and also for GM, but all of the other manufacturers still have that $7,500 tax credit available. There are also federal tax credits for installing an EV charging station. So if you do decide to add one to your home, there are tax credits available for that. And some utility companies have rebates for the cars themselves. If you purchase an EV, they'll write you a check. It's an actual rebate instead of a tax credit. So I'm going to hand it back over to Susan to talk about what you can do and what municipalities can do to increase electric vehicles.
So given the enormity of the climate change issue, there are things that you can do as an individual, and then there's other things that we need to do societally. So local governments and state governments have real opportunities. And again, every single vehicle that you take off the road is really important. But if we can influence the city of St. Pete and Pinellas County and the state of Florida to shift these fleets over, not only are we getting sort of more bang for our buck, but we're also helping to create a market. And that's really, really important. This is one of the ways the solar market and solar prices came down. And I'm going back a little bit, but Germany committed to moving to 100% renewables. It's, well over a decade ago, because they have parliamentary governments. And in order to be the ruling party, they had to make a deal with the Greens and Germany. So Germany has the cloud cover of Alaska, as opposed to what we have. So we're not Arizona, but the point is by Germany making that commitment, it caused the price of solar to start to come down. So it's super important. So one of the things that Dory has done with our team as part of the Electrify the South has created this EV policy toolkit. So we can work. One of the things we would really love to do is to partner with you guys in particular in the city of St. Pete, because they're moving, but they can move faster and more. And one of the ways we do that is by creating some pressure and letting them know, making a little noise, signing the petition, showing up at the meeting, or whatever is appropriate. So it would be kind of an interesting ongoing thing to work with you all on. So this is one of the things, by going to the local governments and offering, sample resolutions or sample policies from other places, just what we can do from educational initiatives. So we've got that all wrapped up in a toolkit on the Electrify the South website. So is it Electrify the South? Dory, do I have the URL right?
It's electrifythesouth.org and then /toolkit.
Yeah. So that would be a really interesting sort of piece. So the city of St. Pete, for instance, they have ordinances related to infrastructure in parking garages. But one thing that's really important, I would love to see you all maybe dig into a bit. It's an equity issue. Is this, where does the charging infrastructure go? Because if you build multifamily and you don't put the EV charging, at least the infrastructure, if not the equipment, it can cost as much as 10 times as much to do it later. So these are the kind of things where we really got to get out in front of things. I would say the same thing at USF, if there are things being built, and there is a consciousness at USF about this sort of thing. So I'm not suggesting they wouldn't do it automatically, but I think as the Hive and, as an action, this would be something to be tracking. Have you met with the sustainability director on campus?
I'm not quite sure if we have, but that is definitely something that I think now that we're learning about EV, we can get involved with. And just to reiterate, you're mentioning having more of a communal voice about creating new EV charging stations on new construction, right?
Absolutely. It just costs less up front. So there's a woman who was the sustainability director, is relatively new. I know she sort of got into place, and then all of a sudden we're in the midst of COVID, but Winnie Mulamba would be worth doing. And I'd be happy to make introductions with you. It's so important to all of you all as you develop relationships with elected officials and people in policy realms, that they kind of know you're watching, and the letters and the petition. I was so excited about both of those projects that you're talking about, the Clearwater Landing and the Douglas Estate. You know, super important. It's all interconnected, right? The carbon sequestration, natural, that Clearwater Landing natural area to deal with sea level rise, right? You need natural solutions for some of this. So, so it's exciting. So let's get familiar with the toolkit. And it may be that, you know, people live in Gulfport and you want to help in any of the local communities, or when we do get to pushing some of these folks, Dory could certainly use help where people, and I say show up at a meeting, that might be a virtual thing now, but back in the old days, we used to show up at meetings, right? And stand up and speak. And we would love to have more voices of young people. It really is the future. And we'd be happy to help with, if you want to write an op-ed or a letter to the editor or talk at a, you know, at a meeting, we're happy to help with talking points and so forth. So next slide.
I'd like to say really quick too, so anyone watching right now who is interested in EV and interested in pushing this forward, please reach out to us at contact@ideasforus.org, and we can make a specific position in our Ideas for Us St. Pete for pushing this forward. So if you're interested, we need you.
Yeah, and you can go to cleanenergy.org and just make sure you're signed up, because I know people on this call are interested in energy efficiency and solar. And so that way you can know when there's something going on at the Public Service Commission. So in Tallahassee, we have regulators, and they are now actually looking at electric vehicles and what policies to allow the utilities to do what they call cost recovery in their rate cases, and how those policies will be set. It is sort of interesting because at Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, we have found ourselves, in a sense, battling utility companies over many, many, many years. You know, the big utilities make more money when they do construction, and they're incentivized to want to build power plants. Back in the day, they were trying to build coal plants. Now they want to put gas plants. They want to put a major asset in their rate base, and they get a guaranteed rate of return, like a waiter in a restaurant with a table of 8, you know, on their big capital expenditures. However, with electric vehicles, it's something where the utilities and environmentalists can be aligned. So, you know, always remember, whether it's land or, you know, follow the money, as people say. So the reason we are building power plants we don't need is because that's how they make money. On the converse, if we can encourage the electrification of transportation, that can help sort of the utilities. Not that we need to, you know, take up a collection for the utilities today, but it does help balance out as things become more efficient. You know, our appliances and our homes are becoming more efficient, and but this can make up for that. So so the oil industry has been large and in charge. They've created infrastructure from our gas stations to everything, to the pipelines and so forth, and they have enormous clout. But just the other day, I forget what the standard was, but I guess it was the value of Tesla. No, I'm sorry, NextEra, right? Just overtook ExxonMobil in their value, in their company value. So it's starting to shift, and that's what we need, you guys. We need to move the shift forward faster. So if you're interested in helping in St. Pete and Pinellas County, you've gotten Caroline, what was it? Say it again, where you want them to get in touch.
So you can email us at contact@ideasforus.org. You can also send us a direct message on Facebook or Instagram, wherever we have our Ideas for Us St. Pete, but contact@ideasforus.org.
So helping to establish these fleet goals, encouraging and making sure that EV infrastructure is really there, but also with an equity lens to that as well. And then there's all sorts of education and outreach opportunities that I'm going to make a very bold suggestion that we invite Dory back to do a Tesla drive with everybody. So she's got a virtual ride and drive. We did have a program called Driving on Sunshine that was super impacted by COVID. And in part, it was because we did research and there was such a lack of understanding, even at the level of people not realizing you don't need to put gas and have oil changes in electric vehicles. We also found that women hate going to the gas station. So anyway, I will tell all of you, male and female, that you'll like not having to go to a gas station. And this is where it's really headed. And it's exciting stuff. And it gives me hope. So for the future, because we can really do this thing. We know how to run clean cars. We know how to make our homes more efficient, and solar, the costs are coming down exponentially. And so we're in an exciting time, but we are in a race against time, and we just have a short window to move this thing. So anything you guys, wherever you'd like to plug in, particularly on the fleet goals and moving this action, we would love to have you. And I think, Dory, these folks would have a blast with one of your virtual ride and drives.
Yes. And hopefully at some point in-person drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to be in person and feel what it's like to go from 0 to 60 myself.
Well, I tell you, I've gotten over like loving to drive, right? And this, the Tesla 3, and I've driven, the Leaf as well. And it's just the takeoff. So one of my very favorite things to do is to come up next to, often they are younger men in the Dodge Charger or the whatever, and I just absolutely blow their socks off, and it is so much fun. So you said it was immature, Dory, I don't know, but it's a heck of a lot of fun, and every one of you all will have that experience. I promise you. And the costs are coming down. Elon Musk is working actually on an even lower price model as well, and these trucks are coming out, and it's exciting. But anyway, we look forward to thank you so much for having us, and we can do some questions if you want, or however you track that. I know we don't have that much time, and
Yeah, we have a couple more slides if you wanted to go over them, or I can just go right through them.
Yeah, just go through.
Yeah, go ahead, Dory.
Okay. All right, so now we can go to questions for our audience.
I've got a question here. I thought I heard in recent news that California made an announcement that they were going to be going with all electric vehicles by, was it 2035 or something like that? What's the feasibility that could actually happen? And like, do you think that it's something that if they're able to do it, is it going to make it more likely that other states follow suit?
Yes, it is feasible. Like you saw all of the commitments from the manufacturers. So instead of, we're going to have far more models at far lower price points, and the production of the energy is definitely feasible to make that happen. And then the second part of the question is are other states going to follow? There already are 15 other states that have a zero emission vehicle mandate. So it's a waiver from the EPA to be able to set their own emission standards. California got that waiver in the 70s, and other states have joined on. Colorado recently joined, and other states are considering joining as well. I would love it if Florida also went that way. But because California's policy, it set in motion all of the manufacturers realizing that that's the way that the market is heading. And because of not just California, but like I mentioned, China and Europe's intentions to go to transition to an all electric transportation system, the manufacturers just realized that if they want to sell their cars and their trucks, then they better make them electric, because that's what the world wants and that's what the world's demanding. So yes, I think that there are other states that will certainly follow.
Yeah, the idea of the market is just super important, because they're not going to make all those different models for different states. Just won't work like that. Another thing that Southern Alliance for Clean Energy did that I think is pretty interesting is we really calculated, because President Trump more recently says they're not going to drill, but they were going to drill. So who knows if he were to be reelected. But we calculated that by adding as few as 4 million electric vehicles, we could offset the potential, because the Eastern Gulf of Mexico only has about 1% of the gas. So for a native Floridian like myself, who's watched this kind of ping pong for so many years over drilling and not drilling, to think that by adding a relative small number of electric vehicles, we could avoid the need to even drill, right? Why would we kill the goose that lays the golden eggs? So they're going to be a huge solution. And the California announcement, Devin, is really a big one.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. So I see 2 questions. One of them, I'll go first to Connie. So hi, Connie. What about impact of the electric car after life? Is it safe to dispose of the batteries?
That's a great question. And Tesla just made an announcement today that they are going to be discontinuing cobalt in their batteries for the all of the vehicles that they're making going forward in China. And so what's great is with the ingenuity, they're making the battery components less harmful to mine. And then they are also working on not just breaking down the components of the batteries and recycling them, which they can do. And it's cheaper to recycle them than it is to mine for new minerals. So there's certainly a financial motivation for them to do that. But there's also a reuse for the car batteries. So when a car battery, it's kind of like your cell phone. It doesn't just stop working. It over time starts to charge less and less. But all of them are warranted for 8 years or 100,000 miles. So it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow that your battery just winds down. But when it is no longer suitable to use the battery in the car, in Japan, Nissan has got this really cool project where they are taking the battery components out of the used cars, powering them with solar and pairing them with solar and using them to power streetlights. So the battery isn't one big chunk. It's rows of, it looks like AAA batteries, all in a real compact series of rows and columns. So they can use the individual components for an afterlife, or they can recycle the materials as well.
And Orlando is doing something interesting with the Orlando Utility Commission. They have a muni that they're buying down the cost of the battery for buses, and then they're going to use the batteries to help with emergency operations centers. So wow. There's a lot that can be done. We were just talking about using some of these electric buses to go and help in nursing homes or community centers. It's, Dory, you said it earlier, it's really like driving a computer on wheels. And so these buses or the cars have the ability to help go power, like in a neighborhood. If we were in an emergency, they could come around and bring power, and people could do their, charge their cell phones. So it's really interesting. It's a whole nother deal.
And we're probably going to see more technology, advancements. It seems like this is just something that keeps going and going. How eco can we make these cars, which is awesome that this is even happening. We're living in a time where this is a reality. I have another question. Are there effective ways to retrofit existing combustion engine vehicles to electric?
They can do that, and there are aftermarket manufacturers that do that for like the bigger trucks, but economically more and more it's cheaper just for the to make them electric, and that's what the direction that the manufacturers are going.
Mm-hmm. So there's not like really filters that you could put on like the back of your car to make it emit less, air pollution or anything like that?
Well, that's what a catalytic converter does. And it's funny because the automobile industry fought that tooth and nail because they didn't want to have to do it because it costs more money. But no, there isn't really a way to add a battery pack or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
From the same people who fought seatbelts. So I'm just
and
saying.
Airbags, and any other, it's shameful, really.
Yeah, more like money-based decisions than, public safety, public health, and environment.
That
based
is
decision-making.
why you all are essential, and you will be for years and decades, because too often elected officials, policymakers can make the wrong decision because of the influence of money and campaign contributions. And, it's just too important to have it be, who's giving the most money to a campaign. We can't, but it won't change unless you all are super engaged, and it becomes not a matter of, do you know your, elected official's name? It's, do they know yours? And we're really gonna just all have to be, on it for a long time to come. And so it's just an honor to be able to be with you guys, and we want to work with you. So, hit up cleanenergy.org, start to get some of that information. There are battles going on around energy efficiency right now. We just got sort of through a little scuffle over the net metering rule, which is what allows you to have solar. The cost of solar has come down, lots of opportunities there. And I hope some of you will be going into careers kind of in the clean energy climate space. So look forward to it.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And we do have one more question from Hannah. Hannah, if you want to ask your question, and anybody else, the last call for questions, please add it in the comments below.
Yeah, so I heard a few months ago, DeSantis, I think pitched, said he was going to dedicate $8 million to increasing infrastructure for EV vehicles, or sorry, just EVs. So could you tell me more about that?
Yeah. Well, real quick, and then Dory, it's just the charging infrastructure. And Florida got $166 million out of the VW emissions settlement. So VW was lying about their emissions, and so they had to pay fines, kind of like BP did after the oil spill. And so 15% of that can go to charging infrastructure. So he committed to that. So what you probably saw was a press conference when he was on the turnpike, and there'll be these fast chargers. So Dory, did I miss anything? Dory knows more than I do, so I try once in a while when I know the answer.
No, you're right, Susan. That is like you mentioned, the Volkswagen settlement. With the Department of Environmental Protection is the state agency that's handling the disbursement of those funds. And fortunately, they did agree to carve out the maximum they were allowed to, which is 15%. So about $25 million eventually will go to charging infrastructure across the state. So they just released this summer phase 1, and they are putting charging stations about every 100 miles along I-95 and 75 and across I-4. And then the second round will be another probably $8 million to connect some of the smaller connector roads across the state. The intent is to be able to have a reliable system for evacuations. So during a hurricane, you would be able to drive your EV from Key West all the way up to Georgia to safety. And that's why it's really important when we have these kind of settlements that folks are tuned in and writing letters saying and demanding we want electrification. So the next part of that settlement is for buses. And we still aren't sure. The intent, we believe, is that they're going to spend the rest of the money electrifying transit and school buses, but they still, by the terms of the settlement, can just buy clean diesel buses, which is such a sham. So Florida has a real opportunity to electrify, to spend the rest of that money electrifying transit and school buses. And SACE has definitely been actively engaged in letter writing campaigns to DEP to ensure that those funds are going to clean electric vehicles.
And while we would applaud the governor for doing the 15%, just take in the fact that this is not like Florida is prioritizing this and putting it in a budget. It's money that was sent to us. So it sort of was kind of found money to begin with, but they are pushing, the opening of all these new toll roads and stuff when we're in a real economic crisis because of COVID. So anyway, we're very happy and we appreciate everything Governor DeSantis has done. I just know that we need to do more at the scale of the crisis that we find ourselves in.
Agreed. And thank you so much to Susan and Dory for joining us on this really important topic, something that some of us might not have known any information on this. So now we know to push forward for EV charging stations, putting in EV before buildings are constructed or before new development when it's cheaper, to support solar energy that goes along with our EVs, and to support our fleet, our governmental fleets, right? Of our municipalities to go solar, as well as to support EV charging stations. So thank you so much. I'd like to reiterate, if you would like to join Ideas for Us to push this forward, please contact me at contact@ideasforus.org. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Dory.
Thank you all.
Have a good evening.
So next we will go into our calls to action. So I'll bring Hannah back to talk about Sierra Club Ready for 100. If you haven't heard of this before, please follow Sierra Club on everything, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's local Sierra Club chapters, and they really are the leaders and pushing forward for renewable energy. So Hannah, please share some information on this.
Yeah, so Sierra Club has this really cool initiative where they actually advocate for 100% renewable energy by 2050. They don't just get cities and governors and mayors to commit, they get every single county, state, and even whole countries to commit to being 100% for renewable energy by 2050. So, you know, there's cities such as St. Petersburg and Largo that have stated their commitments and for this goal, but there's like even bigger cities like Orlando and Tampa and, you know, and then Gulfport are right across the way that have not committed, and Pinellas County as a whole hasn't either, and neither has Florida as a state. So what you can do actually is you can click the link, which we will put in the comments, and it leads you to a map, and you can see what, not only can you see what places have not committed so that you can urge your representatives to commit, you can also take action in cities that have committed so that they actually, you can make sure that they're on their commitments and keeping their word. So there's a lot you can do through this initiative, and I just think the map is so fun and interesting. It doesn't end after just one city, you can just keep going.
Awesome. So we'll share that petition in the comments below. So please make sure to sign it. And again, it's for your city, county, and state. There's a bunch of different options. So please sign that, and we will put that in the comments below. And then Hannah, if you'd like to share our next action.
Yeah, so another fun way to take action that I thought was really interesting was through solarcongress.org. Again, we'll provide the link in the comments. Basically, when you click on the link, it leads you to their month of events. All of them are free, and they're all virtual right now. I would also keep track of them even after the pandemic settles, because they, you know, they've had events statewide. So yeah, definitely take a look at their calendar, because they have like 5 different seminars a day and all different topics relating to solar energy policies. And it's just a really unique site that I think is very valuable.
Awesome. Please make sure to follow us online on Facebook and Instagram. I will also mention Steve had a comment. Hi, Steve. About being notified of these events. So they're every first Monday of the month consistently for over a year now. And on our Facebook page on the left-hand side, it says events. And so you can RSVP, and your Facebook will give you notifications to let you know that you have an event coming up. So once you RSVP, that's the best way to be notified of these events. All of our top conversations and Hive events are on our YouTube. So if you go into YouTube and you type in Ideas for Us, you will see Ideas for Us St. Pete's Hive events, but also Orlando's. We have so many different topics. We really do everything from native landscaping to natural IPM, to conversations on shark conservation, to conversations about solar energy. We have everything on our YouTube, so you can be sure to listen to a local, usually Florida-based expert talk about how this affects our state and what you can do environmentally in your area and take action. So, thank you so much for coming to these events. They're really inspiring because usually we come with not as much of a knowledge base to be able to share with our family and friends about these environmental topics. But now, with the help of Susan and Dory and our speakers, and even Nicole speaking about the conservation efforts in the area, now we're a little bit more educated, so then we can do that environmental advocacy and take action as well. So remember, the eco action items are to sign this petition and to check out Solar Congress, and to contact us if you're interested in promoting EV, solar, and renewable energy with Ideas for Us. Thank you to our team of organizers. We could not do it without you. I'm Caroline Chumanix from here in Orlando, and then we have our St. Pete team, Hannah Miller, Devin Frank, and Caitlin Swanberg. So thank you so much, as well as Connie, which is our new team member. If you'd like to join our team, reach out to us at contact@ideasforus.org, and we'd love to have you. So thank you so much. That's our Hive, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.